So, Ananda Vardhan, there are some questions?
Yes, Maharaj. The first question is, Srila Prabhupada in his commentary to Ramananda Samvad says, when one's dormant Krishna consciousness is awakened, it spontaneously flows to the lotus feet of Krishna without impediment. An example of spontaneous action is the flowing of rivers into the ocean. Nothing can stop this flow of water. Really, is there a dormant Krishna consciousness awakened within us, or is it complete mercy that we can have that? Is it really dormant? That's the first question.
Yes.
And there is one another. What is the meaning of the word spontaneous? Does it also mean being sensitive to the Lord's desires?
There are different statements in the scriptures in this regard. One is Krishna Bhakti Nitya Siddha Sadhu Kavunai Shravanari Shuddha Chite Koroye Udoy is a word which is sometimes rendered as awakened. So, as the awakened implies that something is there, you could say, in a dormant or sleeping condition. Otherwise, you would use some other sort of word. So, it's a mysterious thing, because on the one hand, it will say, bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya, that bhakti alone can give birth to bhakti in another, can awaken in another. And we're always placing the maximum emphasis on the association of Vaishnavas. I just came across that statement in Charitamritam, which says, in the Kali Yuga, there are only two things, the Vaishnava scriptures and the Vaishnavas. You know? And another way, it's a way of saying there's only one thing, which is the Vaishnavas. Because, well, what about the holy name? Yes, the holy name of Krishna, the Yuga Dharma, Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. Yeah. Where do you get the holy name? From the Vaishnava. The scriptures, we have the deity. Where do you get the deity? From the Vaishnava. Madhavendra Puri brings Gopal. It's always through the agency of the Vaishnava. And really everything is that way. The entire Krishna consciousness movement, the access came through the Vaishnava, particularly His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He would say sometimes, there are hundreds of editions of Bhagavad Gita. So I was on a particular preaching book distribution party that canvassed professors at universities. It's called a library party. And part of our process was every university we went to look at the card catalog. Now everything's digitized, but then there were like these drawers. And they have all these little index cards in them, and you'd look. We always want to know what they have in the library first. Even we know what we're going to recommend, but still we want to see, is their collection developed with regard to these type of books, or underdeveloped, or whatever. But I'm always hearing tapes of Prabhupada saying, there are hundreds of editions of the Bhagavad Gita. And his Bhagavad Gita is known as Bhagavad Gita as it is. So we hear the Guru say different things. Sometimes we're thinking like, maybe it's exaggeration. And when I was in charge of the book warehouse, I knew at the time we had something like 327 Bhagavad Gitas in stock. And I'm listening to a tape of Prabhupada preaching at a pandal in Delhi, and he said, every month we're distributing 10,000 Bhagavad Gitas. And while I'm listening to this, I look over at the 327 Gitas. And Prabhupada saying, every month we're distributing 10,000, you know. Hare Krishna. And there's a saying, Yasya deve para bhakti yatha deve tata guru tasyaite katita hyartha prakashante mahatmanaha. The kind of faith one has in God, and if you can have that kind of faith in Guru, then prakashante ma, then great things can be revealed to you. Always back to the agent, the mediator, right? The proxy, the agent, agency. And lo and behold, within a matter of months, there were 10,000 Bhagavad Gitas being distributed every month. But anyway, this other thing occurred, about hundreds of Bhagavad Gitas. And I thought, well, I've seen a few, but hundreds? So I'm looking through this card catalog, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I get up to like around 70, 80. I see there's, and I go, wow, there really are hundreds of editions of Bhagavad Gita. But then the thought occurred to me, and if you look through them, and every one of them, they'll have the verse, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mame vaishasi yuktam sanjam te priyosi me. There's different endings. Atmanam atparayana. Become my devotee. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. Give up all concepts of dharma and just surrender to me. And I'll protect you. Ahang tang sarva papevyo. Whatever fault there may appear to be on your part in coming to me and surrendering to me, I'll absorb that. I'll digest it. The pop, whatever sin that might come to you because you abandon some sort of mundane obligation. If you really come and take shelter at my lotus feet, I'll digest that, absorb everything. Ma sujaha, don't worry. Right? And then I thought, so there's some version of this in every one of those translations. There's some rendering of Krishna saying, give up everything and surrender to me, become my devotee. And then I thought, so how many people, they read these hundreds of Bhagavad Gitas, where's an example of somebody who did that? Says it in every one of those books that this is what Krishna is saying, this is what you should do. But in Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, as it is, when he delivers that almost divine command, people are doing it, hundreds of people are doing it, thousands of people are doing it all over the world. So then we understand there's some special potency. The scripture was there, but without the connection of a genuine Vaishnava and Krishna's sanction in the background to give himself, to distribute himself, it won't be a divine transaction. It can be poetry, literature, an academic enterprise, exercise, but it won't have spiritual potency. So, Krishna Bhakti Nitya Siddha Sadhya Kabanoy Shravanari Shuddha Chite Koroye. So hearing from someone who possesses love and affection for Krishna can awaken that love and affection in another. So, and also, if we take it, Mameva angsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, jive swarupai Krishna nityadas. We're eternally part and parcel of Krishna. Then it must be there. It's, in Prabhupada's words, he said, it's not an artificial imposition on the mind. Gurudev and Guru Maharaj is always reminding us, the holy name's not come to take us to a foreign place, but to our home. Okay? So we take it that Krishna consciousness is lying dormant. Right? Tatastha jivas means situated on the outskirts of the Chit Shakti, between the mundane world and the spiritual world, with adaptability. When the choice is made, egocentric life in the mundane existence, then and again in Prabhupada's words, our natural love of Krishna is pervertedly manifested as a lust for matter. Right? So where is all of this coming from? This type of movement or energy or desire. Atmendriya priti dari icha dari bole kam Krishnendriya priti icha dari premanam. The same principle. In one direction, calm. In another direction, prem. Difference between lust and love. So, still, we can say, as we were telling the other day about Rupa Goswami saying, Ado Shraddha Sadhu Sangha. First there's faith and then Sadhu Sangha. But the Bhagavatam commentators, and then the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, they say sometimes something is stated, something is so apparent and deserving of emphasis and underscoring that the order is sometimes reversed. So when it says, first there's some Shraddha, and then you get the association of devotees, Sadhu Sangha, they're saying, really, you get some connection with the sadhus first, and then there's the Shravanadi, the awakening of faith, and then you get more association with those sadhus. Guru Maharaj liked to quote the poet Magha, who has a work called the Shishupal Vad, the killing of Shishupal. And Vyad, I guess. Anyway, he says that as our present fortune, meaning connection with the Nirguna plane, the agent, Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, Vaishnava, as that's indicative of future auspiciousness, it also indicates some past auspiciousness, that there should be some connection there. So we find when we study the scriptures and hear the stories of so many great devotees, some past connection with nirguna agents, with the devotees, and which by their grace, we say Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed of Krishna conception is received and then developed under their guidance. But then someone could, as guest is there, asking, does that mean there was nothing there before? No. It means the seed of this type of developing conception. That's what it means. But the potential, Nitya Krishna Das, of eternal servitude to Krishna, that has to be there from the inception. And what was the second half?
What is the meaning of the word spontaneous?
Oh, spontaneous.
And does it also mean being sensitive to the Lord's desires?
Being what to the Lord's desires?
Being sensitive.
Sensitive.
Sorry, Maharaj.
Well, Guru Maharaj, quoting the famous sloka, Savai Pumsam Pungsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Hoksajay Ahoy Tukiya Pratyata Yayatma Yanatma Supersediti. That two words of special emphasis, significance is Ahoy Tuki Adhoksaja and Ahoy Tuki Pratyata, that it is, he liked to use the word irresistible, cannot be resisted. And that means the, to use the word we're using as awakening of rag, or spontaneous attraction. There, Rupa Goswami talks about this in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that by following a certain regimen of spiritual practices, one can make spiritual progress and gradually develop internally under the heading of Vaidhi Bhakti. And he gives a structure for how that can take place. But it's interesting, when it comes to Raga Bhakti, or spontaneous attraction to Krishna, spontaneous love and affection, it's not systematic, but rather he gives examples of Raga Bhaktas and their behavior and their statements, so that by hearing about them, one will get an idea. So, when we say rag, or spontaneous devotion, it means that no rule or regulation should come to obstruct the natural flow of love from the heart. There, when we use the word sahajya, and we speak more specifically of prakrita sahajya, because sahajya, sahaj, actually it means easy, or what you're born with, back to the original point. Sahaja. Saha means along with ja, when you're born. So sahaj means natural. That's what it means. Spontaneous, natural, heartfelt. But we make the distinction, prakrita sahajya, as those who are imitating genuine Ragamarg devotees, who have spontaneous, unalloyed, unobstructed devotion to Krishna. And what is that verse? Yan nama shruti matrena talks about, I believe it's this sloka under consideration, flowing naturally like rivers toward the ocean. But we're told at the same time by Rupa Goswami and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, until there is this awakening of spontaneous love and attraction toward Krishna, that one should be under the guidance of the scriptures. And from Srila Guru Maharaj and our Guru Varga, we're told one should not exempt themselves from what's recommended, portraying themselves as a devotee with spontaneous attraction. Those who are genuine like that, they will never describe themselves in that way. In fact, Guru Maharaj says they will never consider that they've reached the stage of anartha-nivritti that precedes that. Because in Gurudev's words, my religion is finding fault with myself, through self-analysis, they'll find that they're lacking in some way. What to speak of an aspiring servitor. The great devotees think like that, and even the greatest devotee, Srimati Radharani, she expresses such things. Voiced by Mahaprabhu, na prema gandhasti darapi mehoro, krandami sobhagya param prakashitam. I don't have a scent of the fragrance of Krishna Prem. What to speak of a drop of that divine substance? But we see, by example, those who do possess that type of love and affection for Krishna, nothing will obstruct the expression of that type of devotion, like the Braja Gopis. No personal consideration of a negative outcome through surrendering to Krishna. And that's the operative principle. Shraddha Shabde Vishwasa Kohe Sudrida Nischoy Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. If by dedicating myself fully and exclusively to Krishna, everything is achieved. Any other question?
Yes, Maharaj. Once you described the relief from the National Museum of Phnom Penh, where an elephant sprinkled Ganga water on Lakshmi Devi, who appears from the milk ocean and who is auspiciousness personified. That reminded me Botticelli's painting called The Birth of Venus. This is said to symbolize the appearance of beauty in this world. How are such similarities possible up to the details, like showering with the water of flowers? Do you know any other examples of such coincidences?
Well, what I'm reminded of is Guru Maharaj quoting Madhvacharya saying, every word has its local meaning in any particular language. He's saying, and he compares that to a horse, a bridled horse. Right? He said, but if you take off the bridles and the reins and let the horse go according to its own desire, right, it'll run in another direction. So Madhvacharya is saying every word has its local context, but if you remove the bridle, the reins of local context, and allow the word to run according to its own inner necessity, it'll run towards Krishna conception. So that's in the language sphere. And I think if we want to be generous and say, in art, artists, they're trying to offer themselves and being instrumental for some sort of, we can say, divine power to use them to express something substantial, if we want to talk about it in its highest sense. That's why the critics of such things when they see something that is overwhelmingly beautiful, high art, they will say, it approaches the divine. It's almost divine what they've done. Right? And they may also speak of the absence of ego that allowed some higher form of expression to come through them. That's the principle. So if we want to connect that, we'll say, Nimitta Matram Bhavasavya Satyan, Bhagavad Gita, Kaviraj Goswami and Charitamrita, and elsewhere, where the devotees, and Guru Maharaj will say, reminding us, the scriptures are only appearing to be passive, but actually it's active, chinmoy, spiritually conscious substance wanting to express itself. So the devotee should offer themselves as an instrument for such expression, to serve the scriptures, serve the slokas in that way. So when we look at the scriptures and the pastimes that are given there, very often, in the case of Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, he will remind the readers periodically that what he's describing is so much less than what it actually is. He's decrying his own position. Right? But there are other times when he will say, I'm not writing this, Madan Mohan is making me write and express these things. So we will take it that if some artists, they're sincere to offer themselves and for the expression of something higher, that parallels the spiritual position. And what I saw there reminded me of how Srila Guru Maharaj could parlay some ordinary conversation into expressing the highest thing. And I think that's the principle that we're dealing with here, is through apparently finite things, there's a way of discovering the infinite. Right? So in the case of Srila Guru Maharaj, this pastime, the churning of the milk ocean, right? The Kir Sagar, I think it's expressed. And so many wonderful things are coming from that. We're told the moon is produced from that. Lakshmi Devi is produced, and that was the scene that was in that museum. Lakshmi Devi herself. And we're told Uchayasrava, this divine horse, and Indra's elephant, so many things. But of particular interest are the moon and Lakshmi Devi. Because the moon represents the Chandravangsha, the dynasty in which Krishna will descend. And Lakshmi Devi, of course, is the goddess of fortune. And what ultimate good fortune is she bringing us in connection with? We'll think the goddess of fortune, as you see portrayed in India or China or other places, the people are thinking that means wealth. So they want to worship her in some way to get favorable indications that their family will be blessed with good fortune, with money. And so you'll see posters of Lakshmi Devi in India, and she has like her hands like that, and there's a bunch of coins coming out, or something like that. And that's one level of fortune, right? Or treasure, wealth. But in this instance, we're at the Mat, and someone was having an ordinary conversation with Guru Maharaj, and they just come from South India, and some hill station near Kurmakshetra. Right? So there was the mention of Kurmadev, the Kurma avatar, the tortoise incarnation. And I had just read the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and as it's drawing towards its conclusion, 18,000 slokas. We've had the 10th canto with the pastimes of Krishna and the Rasa Lila, and the 11th canto and the Uddhava Gita and so many things. Now the conclusion is coming. And there's a reference to this pastime of the Devas and the Asuras churning the milk ocean, searching for Amrita, right? Which is rendered often as, the nectar of immortality. So it sounds like your typical gods, goddesses pastime. They're searching they want to live forever. Because as fine as it is being a god or a goddess, you don't live forever. So they've got this heavenly existence, but they're searching for immortality. That would be enough. That sounds like a myth. East, west, north, south, some type of a myth, right? Searching for immortality. So when I asked Guru Maharaj, I said, here's the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now we've reached the 12th canto. It's the conclusion. So we would think these final slokas, they must be very significant. It's only around 30 or so that are going to conclude the Bhagavatam. So the very last one, Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranashanam Pranamo Dukkha Samanas Tannamami Harim Param. And there's other things about Shruti Saram, Bhagavatam being the creme de la creme of the Shrutis, of all that is to be heard and understood. So this particular pastime that appeared earlier in the 8th canto, it's fascinating, it was wonderful, but I couldn't see the big picture. Why in the conclusion of the Bhagavatam referring back to this pastime? Right? So many other I was saying, like there's the Varaha avatar and the Shringa avatar, this, but why here this particular reference? I couldn't catch why. Right? Acharjavan Purusho Veda, for you need to be in touch with an Acharya who draws out the inner meaning of the scripture. So, and that sloka, Prishte, Brahmya Amanda Mandara Giri, Kanduyanan, Grava, Kanduyanan, Nidralo, Kamatakrite, etc. Prishte, Brahmya, the Brahmya Mandara Giri, like that. Anyway, so I asked Guru Maharaj why, and at the time, he sort of held his head down and started thinking, and I thought, oh, I'm taxing his brain by asking, this is one of these mind-bending questions. So I was going to say, really, you don't have to answer this now, some other time. I was aware it was an unusual question. But Guru Maharaj was actually thinking and engaged in his process that he describes, where he scans all the scriptures, the statements of the great acharyas, of his Guru Maharaj, the great devotees. He's like, doing this type of search. And he started answering the question, which shows also, just as a footnote, he's giving something original, something he'd never said before. Right? Not just repeating something he'd said so many times, he's giving something fresh, right? On the spot, living interpretation. So he said, what was the object of their search? That's how he began. these gods and goddesses, they've assembled at the Kir Sagar. What are they trying to achieve? Amrita. Right. Most often rendered in English as nectar. But it has, why do they say the nectar of immortality? Because mrityu means death. Just like there's the common name in Bengal, Mrityunjay, who's victorious over death. So Mrityu means death. Amrita means deathless nectar, or that nectar that makes one immortal. Right? But in Ramananda Sambad, Ramananda answers Mahaprabhu by saying that what happens to those souls who are like eternal but don't enter in the spiritual world? He said, well, they take their birth as like trees, mountains, these type of things that live for thousands of years in some sort of constant, monotonous existence. So not that type of immortality. So Srila Guru Maharaj said, what were they searching for? They're searching for nectar, right? And we hear, as they're churning the ocean, some poison is coming, an ocean of poison, in fact, right? That Mahadev Shiva is invited to consume. He drinks an ocean of poison, the ocean of poison enters his palm. He drinks that, and the result is he becomes Nilkanta. Siddhanti Maharaj once said to Srila Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, about Shiva doing it. He said that when in connection to Mohini Murti, Siddhanti Maharaj said, well, he just drank all that poison. So maybe he was like besides himself a little bit. Which I'd never heard that. That was something unique. But we're told he's unaffected by this. The only effect is that his neck turns blue. That's the meaning of Nilkanta. Right? Still, they're trying to get at this essential nectarine substance. So that the moon has come, this is foreshadowing that, Chandra Vangsha and Lakshmi Devi is there indicating auspiciousness. Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrahma Sevyamanam. So Guru Maharaj said the reason that it appears at the end of the Bhagavatam is that it is to show and underscore that Madhura Rasa is the ultimate nectarine substance, and that's the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes hearing other sections of the Bhagavatam or certain pastimes, people get another idea. They think the Bhagavatam is promoting some particular type of spatial, astronomical geography. But Guru Maharaj reminds us, what is the purpose of the Bhagavatam? Really, it's about rasa. And really, it's about Madhura Rasa. Yadamiyam Mahima Sri Bhagavatam Katayam Pratipatam Anubhutam Apya Labdabideya Tarakila Rasamurti Shamalila Avalambam Madhura Rasadi Sri Radha Pada Padmam Prapadye. And although her name is not mentioned in the Bhagavatam, really, every step of the way it's to take us in the direction of the Madhura Rasa. Shamalila Avalambam means the Madhura Rasa pastimes of Krishna, which are solely and wholly dependent upon Srimati Radharani. So it means Radha Dasyam. So even this pastime, Guru Maharaj, triggered by some man just saying he'd taken a train ride from this part of the country, then these words, these dialogue that's moving in another direction, we encounter this pastime presented in the pages of the Bhagavatam, that's connected to Madhura Rasa and Radha Dasyam. Hare Krishna. Something else?
Yes, Maharaj. On the internet arrived one question. What to do if after an initiation someone cannot follow regulative principles?
Follow what?
The principles, the rules.
Uh-huh.
And if you try and want to do very much, want to follow very much, but at the end understand that you cannot. So,
well,
what to do?
No, we say it's by the grace of Guru and Vaishnava, by association, that these things are possible. I remember some people, they were visiting Guru Maharaj, and this one person, he said he was interested in Krishna consciousness. He said, but he had this bad habit of, smoking ganja or something, and for 10 years, this many years that, and it was very difficult to give up. And Guru Maharaj said, that is nothing. He said, it's nothing to stop that. So it's a question of willpower and desire. So the devotee is one who, despite their shortcomings, failing, inability to follow this, that, or the other thing, persists. That's all. They don't use that as an excuse to abandon trying or abandon the path. Right? So, and Guru Maharaj would say, he gave an example. He said, say there's someone who follows all of these principles, but they have no connection with Guru, no connection with Gauranga. But there's another person who has a connection with Guru and Gauranga, but has a bad habit of intoxication or some other thing. Who's in a better position? It's the person who actually has a genuine connection. Right? Saraswati Thakur said in one place, if by having a regulated life, that one was that made one a spiritual practitioner, in this case, a brahmachari. He said, then the animals in the zoo would be the best, because they're totally regulated in terms of all of these things. So there's an animal right now. So it just means to not allow Maya to seduce one into thinking, because I can't always follow this, that, and the other thing, I should abandon my pursuit of Krishna consciousness and leave the association of devotees. That's a mistake. It's better to remain within the association of devotees, hope against hope, keep trying. And we hear, Krishna mentions this in the 11th canto, Jata Shraddha Matkatasu Nirvina Sarva Karmushu Veda Dukatmakan Kamam Prityage Pyaniswara. That devotee, they like Jata Shraddha Matkatasu, means they have faith and talks about me, they like to hear about me, but they're struggling to overcome their mundane acquired tendencies. Saying, in time, because they like to hear about me and associate and serve my devotees, in time they'll be successful. So that's our position, that's our strategy, to remain in the association of devotees, to remain under the guidance of Guru and Vaishnava, Sadhu and Shastra, and to whatever degree that we have some appreciation for hearing about Krishna and serving and associating with his devotees, we're confident that in time our position will improve.
Next question is a longer one. When Ramananda Rai tells Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about Jnana Shunya Bhakti, pure devotion, in his purport, Swami Prabhupada tells that when material existence stops, it doesn't necessarily mean spiritual existence. But
what is that? When material existence stops,
it doesn't necessarily mean spiritual existence.
Stops.
Starting, yes. For example, when we...
I don't understand.
Life stops,
yes.
It doesn't mean necessarily...
Someone disappears, that's not spiritual.
Oh, okay.
But you hope to have some kind of epiphany after death anyway.
Epiphany?
Epiphany. Epiphany. It seems that you will know who was who in your life, who was a great soul, who were you in last lifetimes. But what does actually happen? Does a soul go directly to another body without any realization, even momentary ones? Does it know which body will be the next? And also, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that inside the mom, one prays to the Lord, but then forgets everything. Why is it so?
Inside the womb? W-O-M-B.
M-O-M.
Mom,
Mom's,
mother.
I think mom's...
Oh, mother.
womb,
Inside
maybe.
the mother, what happens?
Yes. Praying to the Lord.
Uh-huh.
But
We
then
have
forgets
any mothers
everything.
here who can verify that? Well, so many things are mentioned there. Jiva Goswami says sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, and just that it happens sometimes is enough. And he's trying to make a point. He says, sometimes within the womb of the mother, the baby, that jiva, has awareness of their past 100 lifetimes. And they think, for so many lives I've forgotten you, my Lord. But this, if you'll get me out, this is a horribly awkward situation to be in, jammed inside the womb of the mother. Get me out of this situation, and when I come out, I'll be your devotee and worship you. And then it says, then the baby's pushed out of the womb of the mother. The trauma of birth makes them forget all of that. And they enter a world where they're the center of all attention. And they think, this is the life. So, it doesn't help us to conjecture about all these different past positions, or what is it like and what happens. And best thing to concentrate on is what's happening right now. Right? And we see right now we're in a position where we have a choice. Right? We can dedicate ourselves to the culture of Krishna consciousness, or try to exploit the material world to our advantage. Right? We read so many different things in the scriptures. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions so many things there about yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajitante kaleva, what one is thinking of at the time of death. But we understand from our acharyas also, it's your lifelong cultivation. And what may have happened in a previous life or a future life is, in one sense, really irrelevant to what is before us at present. So we should take advantage of the opportunity to serve and associate with devotees, sadhu, shastra, guru, Vaishnav, to engage in this type of spiritual culture, and the outcome will be improvement. That we understand. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Krishna says in the Gita, a little connection with this can save one from swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, of the greatest type of fear. So we're worried about so many things, we have so much fear, anxiety on the basis of existing in this world. We're worried about the future and so many things. Krishna is saying, if you have just, a small touch of what is substantial, then you don't have to worry about that. Really, what devotees, their anxiety is whether or not their service is being accepted. Do they have a service connection, a recognized, legitimate service connection? They don't want that to be taken away from them. That's the most valuable thing for a devotee. Mama janmani janmani shure bhavatad bhakti rahoitaki toyi. Even Mahaprabhu is saying, certainly because of my karma, I'll have to be born again and again and again. My wish then is that I'll have the connection of Krishna's devotees and an opportunity to serve them. That really should be our focus. Yes.
We were reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, and when Mahaprabhu starts his tour on South India, it mentions that he didn't even try to convert people of Navadvip who strictly followed the Vedic principles but were lacking knowledge of bhakti. In purport, Srila Prabhupada says that if the situation for preaching is not favorable, it's better to go to another place. But if Krishna is in everyone's heart, how can there be people who has no faith and to whom we should not preach?
Well, I think it's just a common sense affair. He's saying, like Guru Maharaj's example is, if you're in a time of famine, you're distributing food, right? There's a line of people and your hand over is distributing food to people. But some foolish person leaves the line and runs away. He said, should you stop your distribution and run after that person? They're not in a normal state. They're in a mad condition. So he's saying to concentrate on those who are eager to receive Krishna consciousness. Right? So, yes, potentially everyone can be there, have that opportunity, but there may be something obstructing their appreciation. I think it's humorous that in the 10th canto, describing the Keshi demon, who is a horse, that we know Krishna puts his fist down his throat. And so Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says, because Keshi could not appreciate that Krishna's sweetness personified, when Krishna pushed his arm down his throat, rather than relishing the sweetness of having sweetness personified in his throat, it felt like a hot iron rod to him. So it means where there's a lack of appreciation, or what to speak of, a challenging atmosphere, a challenging person. One of the offenses to the holy name is to try and distribute Krishna Nam or Krishna consciousness to people who have no faith, who don't want to hear it. We're told to be cautious. Sometimes we take that risk, but generally we should be conscious. There should be some indication on the other side that someone is at least willing to hear. Prabhupada sometimes described it as submissive oral reception, a willingness to hear the words of Krishna, the words of his devotees. Right? And Krishna's will in the background. Once in Vrindavan, in a similar vein, Srila Gurudev said, if Krishna doesn't want to give himself to someone, to distribute himself to someone, why should I? And I thought, if I was pressed to answer this, then I would say, well, you're more merciful than Krishna. Krishna's devotees sometimes described as being more merciful than Krishna. But I wasn't pressed to answer that, and I could understand his point. Like in the famous sloka, no diksham nacha satkriyam puruscharjam managikshate mantroyam rasanas prageva palati Sri Krishna namatmaka. If it's Krishna's will to distribute himself, nothing and no one shall obstruct that. But if it's not Krishna's will to distribute himself, then what are we doing? What is the purpose of that transaction? So, there's always the choice, the exercise of free will. Bayam ditya binibeshitat sad ishad apetasya viparya yosmriti. It's on account of forgetfulness, as we told in the beginning, of that eternal relationship with Krishna, that someone is overwhelmed with anxiety. The Sukritivan, Chatur Vidha Bhajante Mam Jana Sukriti Norjana, those are the little Sukriti. When they're filled with that type of anxiety, they're willing to hear about Krishna, to hear from his devotees, to take their association. So, in short, as the saying goes, God helps those that help themselves. A little something has to come from the other side. At least that willingness to hear, right? And not to challenge, but to then they can be helped. Agyata Sukriti, Gyata Sukriti. And the Agyata stage, unknowingly, someone may have some touch with the Nirguna plane through Nirguna agency. Krishna, his devotees, the holy name, Nam Sankirtan, Prasadam, Tulsi, the Prasadi, Mala, so many things it could be, to bring them to the Gyata Sukriti stage where they're willfully cooperating for their own benefit. So in that ignorant condition, Guru Maharaj compares it to someone who's unconscious, like they were in an accident, they become unconscious. The doctors come, give them an injection, and the injection brings them to the conscious position. But sometimes some places will be much more favorable than others. So Guru Maharaj's example, if you're distributing food in a time of plenty, one person runs away from the line, don't stop your distribution to go after them. So at the time, Mahaprabhu left Navadvip, he went to other places, but the good news is, when he came back to Navadvip, all of those people who were formerly offending him came to Kulia, the Aparad Banjaner pot, and fell at his feet and begged forgiveness. So it's a practical consideration. Hare Krishna. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namo